Born to be you. Born to be you. Why there is no one like you, and why it's so important that you own more of yourself and recognize that you were born to be who you are and not a carbon copy of anyone else, not to be modeled by anyone else, and not just to fit into a box or a category or a limited perspective that everyone else tries to fit you into. My name is Eileen Burns. I'm a soul empowerment coach. I'm a healer and a therapist. I'm also a spiritual business strategist. And today is my birthday. And this video is celebrating you, celebrating every aspect of you, all the things that are perfect about you and all the things that are imperfect about you. Now, we live in a kind of, in many ways, a distorted world that leads us all into thinking that we have to be something else rather than what we actually are. I believe that when you're born and when you're brought into the world, that you come in with your unique blueprint and you have these unique qualities. And some of those qualities can be nurtured more than others. So it's a bit of nature and nurture aspect into how we bring those forth. And one of the biggest challenges that we do have living in this, and sometimes what appears to be a crazy world, is that certain powers to be in certain, how could you say, establishments and structures has us in some level tries to model us as if we should be like carbon copies in some way. We might not see it on the surface level, but when you look at deeper, you just need to look at the education establishment. You just need to look at what people think is what we need to be normal and what we shouldn't be doing with our lives. Now, I'm not saying that there's certain things that are certainly not helpful for society, and there's certain things that I think can be so open that means it leaves it leaves humanity and society open to all sorts of problems and distortions. But the reality is that in many ways, the way that the world is structured, it's often structured to control people and to manipulate them and put them into boxes that they don't always belong. And even though I work with archetypes, and I think archetypes can be a powerful way for us to understand things, and it's in a way it's a form of categorization. What I like about archetypes is there's also a kind of, they kind of melt into each other. It's not too structured that when you're in that one category that you don't melt into others, because you're often they're not. There's so many archetypes that are linked to each other, and it's almost like we have different aspects. But the reality is that, labels have their place, categories have their place, and it can help us understand things, but it doesn't always say the true story. And when you come as an individual, you come in with this unique qualities, and someone might describe you as more artistic or creative, you're maybe more analytical, or you're a bit of a sort of bookworm or something. People describe you and some of the things that you are interested in and your qualities, but still that can not, if someone else was described that, these are not going to be exactly the same. And that can sometimes limit us. It's also the same as when we come in with our physical bodies. One of the things that I like about Caroline Myss, or somebody said to me, is that when she talks about even purpose and how we come in, even with our sacred contracts and the relation and how we come in to the world, we all come in uniquely different with different types of physical bodies, and that can come in with different abilities and different, what some people might say, disabilities, or just not able, to have the natural innate trait to do something. And the easiest way to, explain it, someone that comes in with a very agile body is able to do very agile things. Someone that comes in with a very strong physical body that is able to easily lift weights, they can choose careers and do things that are much more suited to that. Some others have, have got maybe, more lightweight bodies that are maybe sensitive bodies or different things. Everyone comes in with unique things, and sometimes we come in with certain types of challenges. And even, for example, when we look at the medical system or science, the way they categorize people does not mean that everyone fits into that category 100%. It's only some sort of like a kind of vagueness to describe something, but it doesn't always apply to everything. And it doesn't even, it's just one perspective and one ideology. And it's, and it's like when you're a therapist or a healer or a coach, you can do a lot of clients injustice if you just believe everything that one category you're told about one category of people or one category of a condition or all these things, because it doesn't always give the whole picture. It's just almost like some cofactors that are lumped together, and that it's like a label put on it. And that's why, I'm a big fan of more a holistic and spiritual perspective, and always looking at the individual and looking at all the paramount. If you just class clients in one group, and first of all, don't listen to them and don't listen to their wisdom and their stuff, and just bring in that one perspective from often just one ideology or a few people's ideology. You can be coming in with the total wrong perspective and not seeing the bigger picture, because that individual is unique, and unique in their strengths, unique in their gifts and abilities, and unique in their weaknesses. But sometimes what we think is a weakness in one area may not be a weakness for what they are here to do and their purpose. And it's the same as you, what someone might have perceived as a weakness or vulnerability, maybe in some ways your biggest strength, and it's part of your purpose. And I think this is something we need to start owning more of, because even in the healing and spiritual community, people want to fix often things that are not broken, or also they can be the know-it-all attitude, that they know everything about something because they've read something, they've got some ideology, which we have to have a certain amount of openness and to understand that things are always evolving, how we see things change. And it's a bit the same as ourselves, is that we can think we understand aspects of ourselves, and then as we dig a little deeper, we see different aspects. But the key is understanding that you are unique. And when you're born and you're brought into the world, you are a gift, and your gift is unique. And just because someone might have similar gifts does not mean that it shows through exactly the same. And you will have all these other combinations that makes you you, and makes you able to fulfill your mission in a way that someone else can't do it. And I think this is so important. And I think, it's so important, not just in your birthday and, special days, to celebrate yourself, but to celebrate life and all the gifts that you haven't been given, your uniqueness, and what may seem as gifts, but also what seem as challenges, because often the biggest challenges, the biggest weaknesses and vulnerabilities is actually huge gifts there. And that's one of the things that I've learned through my own life. I had a lot of health challenges, different things happened. A lot of people could have their opinion, but the reality is it's just people's opinion. And no matter if that is a doctor, a healer, a therapist, a friend, a family member, it's only people's perspective, and they're only looking at it through one I know for me, lots of things that happened, so many people had so many different perspectives. And especially I was a bit of what you would call a medical mystery, where lots of kind of strange things went on. And of course, sometimes, we want to understand ourselves, we want to understand certain things because that can be helpful. But sometimes when the ego wants to, and that can come from ourselves or from some other person, wants to label something so much and put you in a box that you don't actually belong, it can stop you being open-minded and seeing the bigger picture. And sometimes we want to be put in a category or a block to belong, to understand ourselves and to explore something. And of course, there is an important aspect of that in society. But there is also, I remember for many years, for example, I had a diagnosis of severe ME. And even though that diagnosis was still valid, what happened, I got so hooked into that perspective because it only seemed to at that point explain some of my symptoms, but it didn't explain all my symptoms. And I had been diagnosed with other things from a child. But one of the things that then made me question things was many years later when a friend looking at other symptoms that just did not match up to that condition, which were really strange and bizarre and was a huge, mystery to many doctors. And one of the biggest problems I had was I found that the medical system changed since I was young, that often doctors only dealt with categories in a box and they didn't cross over or kind of almost how could you say, connect together anything. There was nobody that would connect all these different things. You would maybe go to the rheumatology department, virology department, neurology, gastrology. Believe me, I'd been to all sorts of eye specialists. And often what would happen is the structures of the medical system broke down and they were starting to only specialise in certain things. If you didn't fit into those boxes, well, you didn't get any support and you were basically told there was nothing you could do. But the problem was that sometimes people just wanted to put you into one category because it's suited forever for all sorts of reasons, sometimes not so good reasons. Sometimes it meant they didn't have to deal with you. But also what that meant was sometimes you were only looking at something and missing the bigger picture. And it's the same with gifts. Sometimes people train up as healers or therapists or coaches and they attach themselves to a title and they attach themselves to their training rather than all the gifts. And sometimes they don't see all the gifts and they don't really work on them and harness their gifts and go down this category and categorize themselves into one box. And sometimes that box can describe them. Sometimes it doesn't really describe what they do, because we all can train in things, and that doesn't mean that we're actually really good at it, or we do something for whatever reason. And it's not fully allowing us to expand where we are all unique. And just because you may be a Reiki healer or a spiritual teacher or a spiritual coach or kinesiology, a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher, everyone is unique in what they bring to the table and they have different depths of experience and insight and understanding and different ways of looking at things. So you're bringing that, but also you're bringing aspects that your soul is coming in, that you have this one unique combination. You're all this mixture of all sorts of things from your ancestors and your life experiences. And it's so important that you honour that and you accept you and that you don't get too caught when people try and put you into a box that you don't belong, or that when people, because sometimes lazy therapists, lazy healers, lazy coaches can do that as well in their work. Because it's an easy way for them to categorize people, and we can all do it to some extent, because even when we're labeling things, we're trying to understand things. But even when you're using a label to try and understand something about a client or yourself, it's still understanding, being able to see out the box and to see that people are not everything within a box. They're far more complicated, and it's not about complication in ways. They're far more. and they're here to be them. And it's always important to remember, if you're a healer or therapist coach, and recognize, am I trying to fix something, an imperfection in someone that is actually part of their purpose? Because some things that people want to fix in other people are actually their superpower. And we have, it's like, I remember when I was younger, I was always offered plastic surgery. And I was told that, any time I wanted, because I had an indentation in my face and had structural issues. But at that time, it wasn't first of all like what you get surgery now. It was very barbaric and quite dangerous. And I remember I was offered collagen implants. And thankfully, there was a time in my life when I went to consider it. I was a teenager, like many teenagers, going through a lot of insecurities, and some people had been making fun of me. And I went down the route, but quite a few things really kind of shook me up when I looked at it, and different things had happened to me. And one thing that stuck out to me was, I remember asking them a question about this silicone implant, and at the time, which wasn't very good, but I was attracted to sunbeds. And I remember them saying, would it be safe to go under sunbed? And they said, oh, we think so. We think so. And thankfully, I didn't make that decision, because unfortunately, the surgery they were going to do and what they were going to do, they were going to put silicone implants in my face and on my head above my eye, which I already had really a lot of complications with my eye, was turned out to be horrendous for many people. And what I discovered was my challenges and many things that even happened to me in my life made me go down a path and made me look at the world and do things in my own work, my own way. It helped me in some ways also be a visionary. Interestingly, I lost a lot of, can hardly see out my left eye, but in some ways I was a visionary in other ways. So it's funny how sometimes when things that may seem abnormal to other people, there was a lot of things to do with that I think was part of the process. A lot of things I had started having cognitive challenges, but it made me more creative. It made me be very brained and be able to see things in a different way. And I think one of the things that can help is give us power when we have to do things differently, and we're not doing things, and we're not fitting the box. It's easier. So that is really a powerful thing to remember, is that you are you and you're powerful to be you. Okay. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching the video. Bye-bye.